Welcome to the Women of Distance podcast, supported by Open Fuel. I'm your host, Lauren Kramer. You're listening to a special episode with Anna Gibson, who drops in to teach us all about Skimo ahead of its debut in the 2026 Winter Olympic Games next month. Anna shares her entry into the sport and rapid learning curve in the lead up to qualifying for and competing in the Olympics. She explains the Olympic format, rules, technique, and things to watch for, as well as her opinion on Skimo as a template for trail running in the Olympics. I'm so excited to announce that this podcast is now supported by Open Fuel. Open Fuel is conscientious sports nutrition designed to fuel your adventure without pushing unnecessary consumerism or excess waste. You can learn more about Open Fuel by checking out their website at openfuel.co and give it a try using code WOD for 20% off every time. You can also head over to the new Women of Distance Substack to read more behind-the-scenes happenings, including how I'm using Open Fuel in my own training and the people behind the product. Find us at womenofdistance.substack.com. Women of Distance is also supported by our good friends and fellow trail runners at Summit Roasters. Roasted fresh in my hometown, you can support them and the pod by visiting summit-roasters.com and use code WOD15 for 15% off your order. You can find all of these links and codes in the show notes and know that we really appreciate you supporting those supporting us. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy. Thanks for listening. Okay, I am hanging out with Anna Gibson, very soon to be Olympian. Anna, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me back.
Yeah, I am really, really excited for what we're about to talk about. I want to introduce really quick. We are not going to talk about your full story today. We've done that before, and I will link it in the show notes for those who are interested in hearing your whole story and how you got to this point of your career. I think most people listening know you as a runner, probably most recently as a trail runner, also from the track. And we're not going to talk about running today, like at all. We're talking about Skimo instead. Before we get to Skimo and the Olympics and all that you have coming up, I do want to make sure we go back and kind of talk real quick about like where skiing entered your life and your history with skiing, because it's not totally foreign to you by any means.
Oh gosh, yeah, it's not foreign at all. It was actually the original sport for me. Before I was running, before I was even like thinking about sports as sports, like I was skiing as soon as I could walk. Because both my parents are big ski bums, and I grew up in Jackson, Wyoming, where the winter is intense and everyone skis, and it's just the culture that you exist in. And so there are pictures of me like skiing in our driveway when I am maybe 2 years old, quite young. And so it was kind of like actually where things all began. And that went through a lot of different iterations as I got older. I have downhill ski raced, I've Nordic ski raced, and then ultimately followed running as I went into the NCAA in my college years. But skiing has always been a part of who I am. And kind of feels like it's like making this resurgence back into being a competitive thing for me.
I think it's so cool. I've heard you talk about how, like, as a kid, that you thought that this was the sport that maybe you would ultimately take this path, like to the Olympics or as a professional athlete. And it's so cool to see that's not originally the path that you took out of college, but that is where you have circled back to and are still able to do so many other things at the same time. It's not exclusively focused on this one thing. So, talk a little bit about that. Like, as you've been developing this incredible career as a runner, the last time that we talked was before World Championships, where you represented Team USA. Uh, where has skiing fit into the background as you have been growing your running career? Have you been continuing to compete or even just like recreational in addition to your running career?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been competing at all until November and December. So that's all like feeling very new still. But skiing has been in the background for me these last couple of years as I've developed my running career. Um, it kind of took a little bit of a backseat because I lived out in California for a year and was like 3 hours from Tahoe, and didn't have the access that I have when I'm living back in the mountains like I am now. And so Yeah, it's kind of gone through different phases of being like really present and then being a little bit less present. But for the most part, like I've spent the last couple of winters skiing as much as I am able to, and that really like has substituted for a lot of time running that I would have probably been, yeah, training for specifically for trail if I had been in a different location. And so I would say probably like 2/3 of my training hours in the winter is on skis, and then the rest is running. And so it really like has been a very large portion of what I do in order to be successful at trail. And so it's funny because I haven't really had to change that much to race. Like I've already been basically doing the style of training that I need to do in order to be successful at Skimo. I just wasn't really racing.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so this is a big piece of my question is to explain what Skimo is. I think when you understand it, it's very easy to see how similar it is to trail running, how it is a strength for trail runners and vice versa.
Mhm.
But I was saying before we hit record, I grew up in the mid-Atlantic, and like this is not a sport that is accessible to me. We have resort skiing, we have cross country skiing, but Skimo is not a thing I knew about until adulthood when I got into trail and ultra. So what is Skimo? Like explain it to us for someone who has no idea what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think your experience is like so common actually, because there's not really a pipeline for kids to get into this sport. There's not like a massive development program. They're starting to kind of crop up in the West. Like there's a little bit of a Skimo community that's getting pretty big in Boulder, and there's one in Salt Lake, and there's little pockets of people. I know there's like a little bit happening over on the East Coast as well, but historically Skimo has been a sport that people have gotten into like later in their life because it just hasn't, I don't know, it hasn't like developed into the point that other like more mainstream sports are at. And so um Skimo is, it's kind of like a combination between Nordic racing and downhill racing. And the format that's in the Olympics is like a little bit unique. It's a bit different than what some Skimo people think is like the ultimate concept. And so basically what it is, it's a relay between one man and one woman from each nation. There's 12 nations represented in the relay. That's one event, and then the other event is this individual sprint, which is like multiple times around this super short circuit that takes like 3 to 4 minutes. And so the relay, the full duration, each partner goes twice. There's like the woman goes, the man goes, the woman goes again, and then the man goes again. And that whole thing takes like 35 to 40 minutes. And so both of these races are like really short. They're super sprint oriented. Um, and there are like, there's a lot of different ways that Skimo racing can look. There are like multi-day stage races out there. There are like races that you do with a partner through these like crazy mountainous areas that are in the backcountry and like fully off-piste, not on groomed terrain. And so this is just like a little tiny sliver that's made it into the Olympics, and we'll see what it morphs into, if it continues to be a thing or if they add new events, or what have you. But yeah, it's been an interesting discipline to get into because it's very like specific and very niche.
It sounds like trail running on snow with skis on your feet. Like the concept of like the way that you race and the different formats that you have, the Olympic format being maybe a little bit different than the larger competitive scene and what you see in other countries. Like, but trying to figure out a way to compress it down and to make it Olympic viewership and to all of the metrics they need to fit to get it into the Olympics.
For
So
sure. Yeah.
expand a little bit on like what it looks like what does the setup of a course
Mhm.
look like? Is that
Yeah.
maybe that's the question I want to ask?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So all the courses are like a little bit different. And so I'm still kind of familiarizing myself with exactly what the Olympic course is going to look like. But basically, the women goes first. And so there's 12 women from those 12 different nations on the start line all together. And the gun goes off. And then it's like a mass start race where you start by skinning uphill. So for people who aren't familiar, basically there's like these
Yeah, I was
fast.
going to say what is
Yeah.
skinning?
So there's like this fabric that is sticky on one side, and then on the other, it's like a carpet, but the bristles all go in one direction. And so it slides when you push your foot uphill, but then when you step on your ski and you put all your weight on it, it fully sticks to the snow. And so you're able to climb the hill by doing that.
Okay.
And the bindings are a bit different. Like if you're familiar with alpine skiing, your heels are not locked down in the same way in this race. And so it's more like cross country skiing where you're like doing a diagonal stride motion, and you're able to climb the hill. And then you get up to the
Okay.
top. And at the top, then there's this very quick transition where you grab the skins off the bottom of your skis and you jump. And with one fell swoop, you end up in downhill ski mode. And so I highly recommend, if people are not familiar with this, to like look up videos of people doing these transitions, because it's a huge part of the race and it's very entertaining to watch. Like very technique oriented. You have to like dial in the skills of this and be able to do it like super fast when you're breathing and your heart rate's super high. It's actually really challenging. Um,
Yeah.
then you leave the top, you ski down through gates as though it's like an alpine ski race. Sometimes there's like a jump in the middle, sometimes there's rollers, and so they like trying to make it fun. It's sort of like an obstacle course. And then you go back up again, and on the second ascent, so you put your skins back on. Then on the second ascent, there's also a boot pack section. So then you get out of your skis completely, you put them on a backpack that you're wearing, and you run with your skis on your backpack, just like through snow or up stairs that they've cut in the snow. Go back to skinning and then do another descent and then tag your partner. And so it's kind of this like circuit where it's like up, down. And it's only a couple 100 feet of climbing and descending each time. And so
Okay. That was my next question. How high up you have to go?
I think it's like 72 or 75 meters. So it's like a couple 100 feet each time.
Wow. Okay. And so you do that is one round, then your partner goes, and then you do that again a second time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. And the whole thing, so all 4 rounds takes 35 to 40 minutes between both of you.
Hmm. So it's like a
Wow.
very extreme sprint event. Like it hurts like a 1500. It is your full body being flooded with lactic acid, and you get to the finish line and feel like you can't stand up.
Yeah. So, what do you do for that time in between when your partner is going? What are you doing in between to like get yourself recovered, but keep yourself feeling ready to do this again?
Well, see, I guess I feel kind of advantaged because as the woman in the relay, I only have to stand there like in between one time, whereas Cam has to watch me go twice, and I feel like that seems much harder. Like by the time I've finished, I just have to watch him finish the second
Right.
lap. Um, so it kind of like feels like it takes the pressure off a little bit. But honestly, like the time goes by so fast because it's like 7 to 8 minutes, maybe 10 at the most, depending on the course and conditions. And like you cross, you tag your partner, and then it's like time to put a jacket on. You want to keep your hands really warm because you need like the dexterity in your fingers in order to do the transitions fast. So you like really don't want your
Mm.
hands to be wet or numb or anything like that from being cold. And so I like take my gloves off, put on big, warm, dry mittens. Normally there's like some team staff, like our coaches are there with these things for us. It kind of feels like an F1 pit stop. Then there's like somebody coming in with like your sports nutrition. So I'm like chugging some probably like liquid Morton, same as I would do in a trail race. And then before you know it, it's like time already to put your skis back on and go again. So it doesn't really feel like there's that much time to kill.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. I like that comparison with the 1500. I was trying to think like this isn't even like a VK if we're comparing it to trail running. A VK is maybe taking like that entire duration, but you're competing twice and resting twice in that duration. Yeah,
Mhm.
I can see where the track expertise is really helping you out in this format. Okay, so talk a little bit about how you got into this format of racing. We have seen you like hitting the trails. You were even doing gravel cycling this summer, I think. And then I think it was around World Championships. I started seeing you sort of like teasing some ski content. Where did Skimo specifically enter the picture for you, and how did this become like a 2 feet all the way in over your head endeavor?
So I blame Cam Smith. Cam came up to me after Broken Arrow. Um, and his first line was, "You can tell me if this is never going to be a thing, and I will leave you alone right now. But what if you did Skimo this winter? And then he just launched into this whole hard sell about why he thought I should try and the skills that he thought that I could bring. And he knows my background. Like, we've been friends for 4 or 5 years now, and we've overlapped at a bunch of trail races. Most of the listeners are probably familiar with him, but he's like an absolute mountain crusher, both on the trails and Skimo. He's been racing on the Skimo World Cup since 2017. And so he's actually one of like the more experienced people, like even just in that circuit period. And so here he is telling me that I should do it, and that if I do, we might have a pretty good chance of making the Olympics. And I did not say no. I stood there and I listened, and um it wasn't the first time someone has asked me if I want to do Skimo before. I've been teased with this question and this idea a number of times, and I've always just like kind of put it off, thinking, oh, sometime I'll do it. Now's not the time. Um, and then this conversation, like, I just could not get out of my head. Like, for a week, I kept thinking about it, and kept trying to like put together a list of reasons why it was a bad idea and why I shouldn't do it and all these things. And then was like talking to my coach and talking to my parents and talking to my close friends. And everyone was like, you're so excited about this. Like, we can just tell by the way you're talking about it. And also, like, why not? It sounds incredibly fun. And yeah, it made so much sense. And like the opportunity to maybe become an Olympian and to help Cam realize this like dream that he's had for the last 4 years since it got announced that Skimo is going to be in the Olympics. Um, to just like help, move USA Skimo forward and get it to a place where it is like becoming more accessible to people, and just to be a part of all of that, I just like immediately was like, yeah, I have to do this. I want to try. And so I went all in from that point forward and started going to training camps with USA Skimo once a month, through the rest of the trail season. So that was like, yeah, uh, August, September, October. I was like traveling to, go to ski camps with them and to learn all the technique and get coached. And I just kind of decided, I committed to it.
You seem to be in your like why not phase of life. Like just you have nothing to lose and everything to gain, and like I can see you talking about that conversation now and you're still excited to talk about it. I think that is just speaks a lot to the way that you are making choices and developing your career and opening doors for yourself here. Talk a little bit about the Olympic format. This is the first time that it is in the Olympics. So there has been this process of like qualification and which countries are eligible to go. Like what did that whole process look like of getting to the Olympic stage?
So yeah, I mean, I'm really coming in like for the last tiny little percent of the
Yeah.
qualification window. So it actually started like a year ago. All of last year's World Cup season was part of the qualification, and to be honest, I don't understand all the minutia of it or like how it all works. But there were different continental bids, and so like we got to this point based on last year's World Cup results that we were 1 point behind Canada, and in order to make the
Mhm.
Olympics, we had to beat them at this World Cup race in December. If they beat us, they went, and if we beat them, we went. It was that simple. And so it was based on all sorts of movement from all of last year. But it really boiled down to this like very simple moment of just like true competition and racing.
There are, you said, I think 12 countries that line up and get to compete in this year's Olympics. Is that specific to this year? Like, is there an opportunity for that to grow and for more countries to be represented? Like, how were those 12 countries? Maybe this is sort of elaborating on what you were just starting to get into. How did those 12 countries get selected for this year's games?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's just, I don't understand exactly like the whole process of how sports get added into the Olympics, but they kind of start out in this like small infancy mode, um, where like, as I was talking about before, this isn't necessarily what most people see as like the most quote unquote pure version of Skimo. And it's a very small field. Like normally there are way more than 12 teams that get to line up and like try for competing. There's also there's actually two Skimo events in the Olympics. So there's also the individual sprint, which is only 18 men and 18 women, which is also quite small. Like normally World Cups have way more people than that. There's like 50 men and 50 women, if not
Hmm.
more. And so this was just like the format that was decided on, that like the Olympics Skimo is new and it's just going to be small while they like figure it out. And so like my understanding is that that could completely change for next time. Like maybe they add the two other World Cup events, which is like a vertical mass start and an individual race, which is essentially like a 90-minute to 2 hour like mountain adventure that goes like off piste, off the groomed terrain. And maybe they'll expand the field sizes and make them larger. But this was just like, I don't know, it's just really small. That's just what they decided on. And so everyone's battling for these like very coveted, limited number of spots.
Okay. Okay. Then scoring, I think, is the last question I have in like a how it works sort of line of questioning. Is it purely based on time, like a race, or are there rules, points, etc., that you can pick up along the way?
So it's purely based on time. So whoever crosses the finish line has won, with the exception of one thing, which is that there are a lot of time penalties. So instead of getting full on disqualified, there are lots of things where you could kind of get like seconds added to your time afterwards. And so if you are in a transition box, like there's a section like when you get to the top of a climb and you're going to transition, take your skins off to go downhill, you ski into this rectangle of snow that's painted with blue paint and there's like flagging around it. And like if you have any of your equipment outside of that box while you're doing the transition, even if your pole is just like laying diagonally across the line, you'll get a time penalty. If you false start, you get a time penalty. If you lose a piece of equipment, if you cross the finish line without a skin or a ski or a pole, time penalty. And so like those things do definitely affect the race. Like sometimes somebody will false start and then they'll like, you know, in the individual sprint they'll false start and then cross the finish line first, but then get like relegated. They'll get 15 seconds or something added to their time and end up further down in the standings. um and I'm not the best person to ask about any of these technical details because I am like truthfully still learning all of this. Like this has all been a huge part of the learning process for me, is like figuring out how to try and keep Cam and I safe in this event and like make sure that I'm not doing something that's like jeopardizing our race by accident that I didn't even know was a rule.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you, for things like that, like time penalties, are they called in the moment? Like, is there a flag or a card or something? Or do you maybe not even necessarily know that you did something until after the race is complete?
I think a lot of the best people definitely know when they've done something. But I feel like there's
Just
a
on
very,
their own awareness.
yeah, they'll just be aware that they
Yeah.
like, yeah, transitioned wrong or did something badly. But oh, I thought of like another one. People get time penalties for this a lot. You're not allowed to be touching, like when you're in a transition box and you're doing a transition, you have to be fully done transitioning before you pick your poles up. And so you can't be like touching a boot and then grab a pole at the same time. And so that's one where like I've done that by accident when I've been practicing. I've like been still adjusting a boot or my binding or something and grabbed a pole. And I'm like, I know in my head that I've messed it up. But in a race, it's too late and you've already done it. And so like you might know that it might get added to your time later, but there are certainly occasions where you don't know that you've done something wrong. And then, yeah, they like tell you after the fact.
The strategy is fascinating to me. Like I'm picturing like triathletes who have to do transitions between different sports, but the rules around that transition, it sounds like, are very specific and very technique oriented in Skimo. How big is the box? Like how much space do you have to move around in?
It's not very big. Like it is barely
Yeah.
big to fit all of the people at the same time with all of their equipment and all the time. Like, I mean, that's part of the strategy is you come in and you're maybe in fourth, fifth, sixth, whatever, and you're like looking for the right space to fit into where you're not going to get impeded by somebody else or, you know, be like on a weird side hill or something like that. Like it's these transition zones are like very chaotic and all of them are different. And it's, yeah, there's not a lot of space. So it's like that's a huge part of the game is just trying to find the right spot to fit yourself into.
That's nuts. Okay, talk a little bit about how the Olympic race is actually going to play out between both events. What days is Skimo racing in the Olympics?
So we race on the 19th and the 21st of February, which is
Okay, that's the
at the
end.
very end. Yeah, so the relay is like on the last day. It's I guess not the same day as the closing ceremonies, but the day before that. Which I actually think is going to be so fun because my hope is that other people and other athletes who are around who are like waiting around for the closing ceremonies are like, why not? Let's just go watch this crazy race. And what's so cool about both of these events is that you can literally stand at the bottom of the slope and you can see the entire thing. It's like you could sit in a chair and watch it. So it's very
Yeah.
accessible. It's going to be great for spectators. And I think it's like a really animated race also because there's like so much going on all at once. Like at any given moment, it gets pretty spread out. And so you could be watching athletes ski up, ski down, transition, like whatever. There's like something going on at all times. And there's a lot of back and forth because people have different strong, different strengths and different weaknesses. So it's like really animated and fun.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm so excited to watch. Are you going to go to the opening ceremony then, since you have that time between when they are and when you compete?
Yes, we're gonna go to the opening ceremonies, which I'm very excited about to see in real life. And then we're going to a training camp a couple hours away to just kind of like get out of the chaos and hibernate a little bit before we race, which will be nice.
That seems smart. Awesome. Awesome. I'm so excited. This is a month away. By the time this podcast comes out, it'll be like exactly a month from opening ceremonies of the Winter Olympics. What does like your life and training look like over the next month as you are getting ready for this? Where are you going to be? What kind of training are you doing? What does that look like?
I am mostly home. Cam and I are gonna go do one more race together in Spain, like 2 weeks out from the Olympics. But other than that, I'm just home in Jackson, trying to be in a good training routine and just like take care of myself, stay healthy, and really just like enjoy life. I feel like there's kind of this like assumption that everything changes the second that you make the Olympics and that everything gets really serious and everything. But I just am trying to really push against that for myself that like the best thing I could do is just keep having fun and do what I want to do every day, which is train and enjoy the time with my family and my friends, and honestly just keep life like as normal and routine as possible. Really until I like leave and go to Europe, and then even then like training isn't really that crazy. It's just the same thing, but on the road and in a new environment.
Yeah, like you said, you've already got the skills and the fitness, and it all translates very, very well. There's not a need to make drastic changes for you. This fits into your life pretty nicely. Awesome. Last question I have for you. Like, I am hearing so much crossover in trail and the way that trail running works, both in the real world and discussion about bringing trail to the Olympics in the future, maybe not the distant future. I know Golden Trail specifically has sort of been advocating for a similar format, I think, that is like a compressed version of trail running. And I think a lot of the feelings around that are probably similar as the feelings around Skimo in, what is true to the sport and how would have to change and adjust to be an Olympic format. I guess that's just the question I have is like, do you see that crossover? And do you think that this is a similar sort of framework that trail running might follow?
I definitely do. I know there's a lot of different opinions about trail running being added to the Olympics, as there were with Skimo. There's just like a lot of commentary around all of that. But in my opinion, it's only good things because I think that it's like, while it changes the sport is going to change no matter what. And I think it, opens up a lot of opportunity and shifts things in a like professional way that gives people the opportunity to get into these sports to begin with, which ultimately for me is just like the goal. And, even just for me personally, feeling like the opportunities that have opened up just because of making the Olympics have been massive, just in terms of my career and, professional success. And so, I'm a fan of it. I think it'd be really cool. And I think that there is like a version of trail running that could absolutely be in the Olympics and could be such a hit. And especially if there's like a number of different disciplines represented. Like if there was like a VK and a 50K, for example, or something like that, I think that it could be like a pretty cool place to start. And then, I'm sure it would go through the same thing that Skimo hopefully will, where it kind of adjusts as time goes on and they like, yeah, kind of change it as they see what needs to be changed.
I think that's the key, that you kind of hit the nail on the head there, that just the original format that you start with isn't set in stone. It's not concrete. You can start with something and grow, change, develop from that point, but you got to start somewhere. And I
I
think
mean,
this
you got to just like get your foot in the door. Like if they add one running event, one trail running event to the Olympics, I will think that that is a huge win for the sport. And I don't know, I would feel like I would just like totally bet that it like morphs into being more than that in the future. Just knowing, yeah, how many people are invested in it and how fun it is. Like I just have so much faith that it will like work out, however. And so I think like, I don't know, people just need to not get too like wrapped up in exactly what the details are. I know there's a lot of like good people who know a lot about the industry like weighing in on this conversation and trying to make it happen. And so I'm just trying to trust like that it's going to work out. And I do think that, yeah, it'll be really cool if it ends up happening for trail.
I think it'll be really cool to see how Skimo executes it and how they do it, and then I think it's something to learn on and to grow on for trail. But I'm so excited to watch this happen for you, to watch it happen for the sport, and to understand and cheer you all on in this huge endeavor in a month from now in Italy. All right. Best wishes, Anna. Take care of yourself. We will be really excited to watch you in the weeks ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.